He wasn't supposed to be on that witness stand, at least not in a courtroom like this, not under oath, not spilling secrets he once helped bury. But when Deontay Nash took a deep breath, leaned forward, and spoke into the microphone, the courtroom went still. What he said could unravel everything. Because this isn't just a trial, it's a window into a world most people only see through filtered Instagram posts and glossy magazine covers. A world of glamour, music, and unimaginable darkness hiding just beneath the surface. And for the first time, that darkness is being dragged into the light. Deontay Nash was once just another young stylist trying to make it in the industry. His break came in 2008, not through a talent agency, not through a networking event, but through a Craigslist ad for Bad Boy Entertainment. He answered it. He was hired. Before long, he found himself working with two of the most visible figures in entertainment at the time, Cassie and Sean Diddy Combs. But this wasn't the dream gig people imagined. Nash wasn't just helping pick out outfits, he was witnessing behavior so disturbing it would later be brought before a federal court. He testified that Diddy would refer to Cassie with words no one should ever use, degrading terms repeated often, said in public and in private. Nash said he witnessed the verbal abuse weekly, and he wasn't the only one who noticed. She looked sad, he recalled, like she wasn't allowed to breathe without his permission. But that was just the beginning. The public saw the glitz, the designer outfits, the red carpet moments, the photos of a picture-perfect couple framed by flashing lights. But behind closed doors, that shine dulled into something much darker. According to Deontay Nash, what happened off-camera was a twisted kind of routine, one where Diddy allegedly treated Cassie more like property than a partner. There were no real boundaries, no privacy, just rules, many of which changed depending on his mood. Nash told the court that Cassie had to ask for permission just to leave the house. Not figuratively, literally. He said he witnessed moments where she'd be terrified to step outside without checking in first, and if she didn't, the reaction was immediate. One night, after she went to a club without telling him, the phone rang. Diddy was on the line. Furious. Nash said Cassie's face went pale. She didn't argue, she didn't explain, she just started packing her things and rushed out the door. The message was clear: whatever life she had outside of him didn't exist anymore. And the way he spoke to her, it wasn't just disrespectful, it was dehumanizing. Nash listed the names Diddy would allegedly call her: the B word, ho, even a strange nickname, CC. Sometimes he called her baby girl, but even that sounded less like affection and more like ownership. When asked how Cassie responded, Nash didn't hesitate. She looked sad, like someone trapped in a performance they could never escape. A performance where the price of getting the part was surrendering every piece of yourself. But it got worse. Nash claimed that Diddy frequently used the threat of humiliation as a weapon, dangling it above Cassie's head like a blade. He said Diddy threatened to release intimate tapes. Tapes Cassie didn't want recorded in the first place. These weren't idle threats. Nash said Diddy mentioned showing them to the public, or to her parents, or worse, to their coworkers. The intent wasn't exposure, it was destruction. Psychological warfare. One time, according to the testimony, Diddy even said he'd send the tapes to her parents' jobs and get them fired. He knew where they worked. He had their numbers. And he wasn't bluffing. It was the kind of control you can't see in photographs. The kind of silence that builds behind the smile in a red carpet photo op. The kind of fear you can't explain until you've lived it, until your life no longer feels like your own. And the worst part? Nash wasn't the only one who saw it. There were staffers, assistants, friends, people who walked in and out of those houses every day, and yet this world of control continued unchecked because no one dared to speak up. As Nash put it, she would stay inside the house for days, not because she wanted to, because she wasn't allowed to leave. The question isn't just what Diddy did, it's how many people watched him do it and said nothing. It happened fast. But for those who witnessed it, time seemed to slow down. It was supposed to be just another night. Nothing special. Cassie was packing for the OVO Fest in Canada, helped by Deontay Nash and a woman known in the courtroom only as Mia. The mood was quiet, focused, They were trying to leave the chaos behind, if only for a weekend. But then the front door opened. According to Nash, Diddy walked in without knocking. His face was already twisted with rage. No greeting, no explanation, just fury. "Didn't I tell you to answer your phone?" he reportedly snapped. Before anyone could speak, he lunged. In Nash's words, Diddy grabbed Cassie by the hair and yanked her backward, dragging her across the floor like she wasn't even human. Then came the fists, blunt, unrelenting. The room exploded into chaos. Mia screamed. Nash said he threw himself on Diddy's back in an attempt to stop the beating. But Diddy, bigger and stronger, shook him off like nothing. He hit Mia too, tossing her aside as easily as furniture. Cassie's head slammed against the metal edge of the bed frame, and when she rolled over, blood streaked across her face. Still, Diddy didn't stop. Nash said the moment felt surreal, like watching a horror movie with no pause button. Everything spun into motion, yet the atmosphere was heavy, paralyzed. There was no staff running in to help, no bodyguard stepping in, just a room filled with fear and a man who knew he wouldn't be stopped. At one point, in the middle of the violence, Diddy allegedly looked around and said something that sent a chill through the courtroom when Nash recalled it. "Look what y'all made me do." There was no apology, no remorse, only a twisted sense of justification, like he believed this outburst wasn't his fault but theirs. And then he was gone. The silence afterward was deafening. Nash said Cassie sat on the floor, crumpled and bleeding. Mia searched frantically for towels. No one called 911. No one knew what to say. They were all still trying to make sense of what had just happened. But they wouldn't have long, because within hours, Diddy's team was calling. Staff members, assistants, security. Everyone wanted to know where Cassie was, not out of concern but control. They wanted to get her back under lock and key, to patch things up, to keep the machine running. Later, Nash said he overheard Diddy saying Cassie could go to a plastic surgeon, a chilling remark that felt less like a joke and more like a solution. But this wasn't a one-time outburst. According to Nash, this was a pattern. He described another moment cooking in the kitchen with Cassie when Diddy burst in unannounced. No warning, just aggression. He grabbed her again, by the hair, dragged her toward the front door. When Nash stepped in, Diddy turned on him too, slapped him, cursed him out, and ordered both of them to leave. And yet, they didn't run to the police. They didn't speak to the press. Because in Diddy's world, everything was a closed loop. Power insulated power. Silence was bought. Fear was currency. That night wasn't the exception, it was the rule. There are moments when survival doesn't look like running. It looks like hiding. Like vanishing so completely that no one can trace you. That's what Cassie tried to do after the assault. She didn't go to the police. She didn't go to a lawyer. She didn't even go to family. She went to a hotel. Deontay Nash, the one person she still seemed to trust, helped her get there. He said he drove her down Sunset Boulevard looking for a safe place. Somewhere anonymous. Somewhere Diddy wouldn't think to look. But Nash admitted something else in court. Something that made the silence even heavier. She didn't have a plan. Cassie was terrified, exhausted, bruised. She didn't know what came next. There were no rehearsed statements, no media teams. Just the clothes she was wearing and a growing fear that no place was truly safe. And then the phone started ringing. Not Cassie's, Nash's. It was Diddy. He wanted to know where she was. Nash didn't answer, but it didn't matter. Because within hours, Diddy was outside Nash's house. He walked through the kitchen like he owned the place, opened cabinets, even checked the oven. Nash said he wasn't sure why. Maybe Diddy thought she was hiding there. Maybe it was paranoia. Or maybe, just maybe, he was sending a message. There's nowhere you can go where I won't find you. And then, Diddy took Nash's phone. He wanted to track her, to cut off any line of communication. She wasn't just missing, she was disobedient. And in his world, disobedience demanded consequences. Eventually, they found her. According to Nash, Diddy's team, security guards and staff, figured out where she was staying. And instead of going himself, Diddy sent a command, "Go get her." Nash didn't want to, but he was afraid. For her. For himself. So he went. He knocked on the hotel door. When Cassie opened it, she wasn't crying, she wasn't yelling, she was shaking. Her voice was flat, her eyes were wide. And then she said something that froze Nash in place. "If he comes here, I'll jump." She pointed to the balcony. It wasn't the first floor, she meant it. At that moment, Nash said he realized just how deep the fear ran. This wasn't just a woman trying to leave a bad relationship. This was someone who no longer believed there was a way out. And he wasn't the only one watching. Nash said that when he stepped back outside, he saw at least 4 or 5 of Diddy's security guards downstairs, waiting, watching, not saying a word. They didn't need to, their presence was enough. This wasn't about helping her. It wasn't even about damage control. It was about containment. Control her. Silence him. Restore the illusion. Nash knew if he stayed any longer, he might not make it out either. He got in his car, turned off the headlights, and drove fast. He didn't go home that night. He didn't even go to a hotel under his real name. He said he kept $1,000 in cash with him at all times, just in case something like this happened. Just in case he had to disappear too. It was supposed to be a celebration. New Year's Eve in Las Vegas, but for Cassie, it was something else entirely. Deontay Nash told the court that by the time he reached her hotel room that night, she had been unconscious for nearly 24 hours. Diddy was in a panic. Not the kind that comes from concern, but the kind that comes from losing control over a situation. "She won't wake up," Diddy reportedly said. And then he said something else. Something Nash couldn't forget. "I spent all this money, so she has to." According to Nash, when he finally managed to rouse her, Cassie didn't look confused. She didn't even ask what day it was. She just blinked, stood up slowly, and started getting dressed. As if this wasn't the first time she'd awakened in a strange room with no memory of how she got there. That's when Nash realized this wasn't just emotional manipulation anymore. This was something far more disturbing. He said that over time these hotel visits became a routine. Weekly, sometimes more. Cassie would pack a bag, often with things she didn't want to bring. Toys, he called them. When asked in court if she ever said she wanted to go, Nash answered without hesitation. No. She always said she didn't. And yet, she went. Again and again. Why? Because saying no wasn't an option. Not in that world. Nash said Diddy's control didn't stop with threats or intimidation. It was embedded in everything. From the flights she took to the staff who followed her, from the hotel bookings to the studio schedules, there was no escape, only orbit. Even birthdays weren't safe. On Cassie's 29th, Diddy allegedly asked Nash if he should surprise her. Nash didn't know how to respond. Say yes, and he'd be complicit. Say no, and he'd risk becoming a target himself. So he gave a non-answer. He'd learned by then that neutrality was sometimes the only form of protection. She was high that night, Nash added quietly. Not happy, not celebratory, just distant. According to Nash, Cassie rarely seemed sober during these encounters, and rarely seemed in control. There were jokes from Diddy, offhand comments, phrases like, "Y'all gonna get some D tonight." It was said like a punchline, but no one laughed. And through all of this, Nash says Cassie never stopped trying to regain a piece of herself, any piece. She'd resist in small ways, delay the trips, stay in her room longer than allowed, try to cancel meetings, but it never worked for long. Because every time she tried to break away, Diddy would close in harder. One time, after she failed to answer his calls, Nash said Diddy warned that he'd leak videos again, the same ones he'd allegedly weaponized before. He said he'd send them to her family, to her job, to anyone who could ruin her life on his behalf. It wasn't just blackmail, it was a system, a cage with no bars. At one point, Diddy reportedly joked about surprising her on her birthday, not with flowers, but with a private visit she hadn't asked for. Nash didn't argue. He knew better. "She looked high," he said. "She looked like she didn't want to be there." Throughout all of it, Nash continued to work. He styled Cassie, styled Diddy, even styled other stars in the bad boy orbit. And when asked about it in court, Nash didn't flinch. "I don't hate him," he said. "It's not in me." But he also didn't deny anything. There were others too, assistants, producers, execs, who saw what was happening. Some tried to help, others turned away. But now their names are surfacing, one by one, and the more this trial unfolds, the clearer it becomes. This wasn't an isolated story, it was a pattern. And it might not stop with Diddy. This courtroom isn't just airing out one man's secrets. It's putting an entire industry's silence on trial. Because what happened in those hotel rooms, what happened behind closed studio doors, it didn't stay hidden forever. And now the world is watching. More witnesses are coming, more testimonies are scheduled, and more uncomfortable truths are waiting to explode into the public. But there's one question that still haunts everyone watching this unfold. If this is what's coming out now, what else have they been hiding?